On the 4th day of Vlogmas, my art content will be my artist wish list, while practicing with some new brushes.
With new brushes, the first thing I do is just try out each one on a blank document and just fill a page to see how it handles. I recently got a dragon set of brushes that had like 300 brushes in it, so this is mostly that, but then I got some fun decorative brushes that would be nice for like a fancy dress, I think. This is by no means a complete artist wish list, and I have it basically broken up into several categories. First, I'm going to look at some very specific things, then some general things that are kind of based on stuff I already have but I want more of, and then some semi-practical things. Aspirational things, maybe I should say. First thing on my artist wish list would be the Hej Stylus for Mac, or if you're for PC, LazyNezumi would be one. So this is really for desktops, and they have some super neat functions that aren't necessarily super obvious, especially if you already have a tablet. But this can really elevate your work and give you even greater control and options over your art. Hej Stylus is an app that works pretty much on top of all your other apps, and at its core, it is a smoothing tool. What do I mean by that? I mean, even with a tablet, even on a super duper Cintiq, smooth lines are not that easy. They are super simple, but that doesn't mean the computer portion is super great at it. Some art programs are obviously better than others, but this just makes it so much easier and consistent. My favorite is the position pull tool, which looks like you're dragging lines around on a little piece of string. So if you mess up a little bit, that string goes slack and doesn't wiggle the line while you're drawing. And something super duper nice for calligraphy is all the physics that it's got going on. You can set different parameters for physics, fluid position, fluid pressure, pressure mapping, pressure buffer, and way better rotation and tilt. Very hard to convey without using it yourself, but the free trial pretty much convinced me I want to buy this thing. On top of that, and this is maybe even more useful, is it's got a bunch of different rulers that will make drawing straight lines a snap, and also automatically set up your drawing in perspective. This thing will keep your lines in true perspective in 1, 2, and 3 point perspective and ISO's perspective, which is a huge load off your shoulders if you want to add backgrounds, and it's extremely great for comic artists. A Hej Stylus isn't overly expensive in my opinion, though it is Mac only. If you have a PC now, LazyNezumi is the equivalent, and it has some other functions I really wish I could get, like unlimited presets, scripting, where you can basically program a custom line shape, and the L systems for scripted drawing, like fractals, which you can combine with your regular program brush tools. Super cool. Maybe a little bit more advanced since it requires a little bit of coding, but if you're into that kind of thing or need further robustness in your custom brush game, it's awesome. Another thing I'd like to get is a color wheel app, either Coolorus 2 for Photoshop or MagicPicker, which works for Photoshop and Illustrator. So color is pretty much the most important thing in art, asterisk. It's kind of like a really spicy values take, but then it blossoms into its whole other, it's a thing. Anyway, Adobe has made some improvements with their CC library and color palette add-ons that you can get, but it's still kind of crap. One frustration that I have is the panel windows are so small, and I want them way bigger so that I can very precisely pick colors. Coolorus is helpful since it can set gamuts for you, meaning you can decide a few of your extreme colors, and then it will automatically show all the colors that fit between them, so you can have super harmonious colors without necessarily setting a whole palette. You can also have color sliders in different color setups, which is great if you need to output your art for different displays or for print. Saving and mixing colors efficiently, set up palettes you actually will use, luminosity lock, and some other very handy stuff. Similarly, MagicPicker is also a great tool, plus it works with both Photoshop and Illustrator, which is super attractive to me personally. It's really set up for professional level color handling. You can turn on the Munsell color wheel and use the Munsell system, which, if you're into colorimetry, is super great since it's a very human-centric color gamut, and it's also the industry standard. The display for the tool is very easy to follow for how complex the tool is. It features a color temperature wheel, tone lock to keep the same tone but shift hue and saturation so you can keep the values correct but change the other color aspects. It's got lots of shortcuts, can show loads of specific color info and input, as well as helping you when you need to use specific colors across ad campaigns or something. You know, professional stuff. And then it's got like a bunch of other specs, so like color picker. It sounds awesome. I'd like to get this. Similarly, BrushBox or another intuitive brush organizer would be great, because I now have so many, and some of these brush packs overlap a bit or are unwieldy in size, and it's really easy to get lost in the weeds. Another thing I might have on my artist wish list would be gift cards to like CubeBrush or Gumroad or Envato. You know, places that have a lot of resources for artists that are very difficult to specify on a gift list and even harder to wrap up in a stocking. But they have a plethora of unique goodies that warm my little artist heart. Another pretty good one in that vein would be gifted Patreon or Kofi subscriptions. There are so many artists I love to follow on social media, but on Patreon and Kofi, some of them offer some really, really great perks. Muddy Colors, for example. It's a blog collective of professional illustrators and art directors where I learned so much great info, but their Patreon offers some exclusive behind the scenes stuff and even classes. And then many of those artists have Patreons themselves, and some of them offer membership levels that involve teaching their patrons hands-on from month to month to varying degrees. Even like the most expensive levels for these artists tend to be sold out, like $150 a month levels, because for personalized feedback, that's actually a really good deal for professional mentorship. But even like a $10 level, you can get a really good breakdown of the artist's process on particular pieces and learn a lot. I do that with Cory Godbey. Another classic artist wish list item would be art books, anywhere from like the inspirational to aspirational to instructional. It's great to have Pinterest boards, reference folders, and screen captures to inform your work, but there's something about holding certain things in your hand that really drive something inspired. Like the OMG Posters book is absolutely huge. Not only does it have lots of full-page images of the posters it talks about, and thereby is a pretty thick book, it is also so tall and wide it doesn't fit on my shelf like a normal book does. So every image in there looks like its own poster. Print quality is also really great, so you can see all the details on an Aaron Horkey illustration. It's incredible, and getting that kind of scale is just impossible from an Instagram image. And sometimes a printed book just has all the info you really need on something. Last year I was gifted the Grand Medieval Bestiary, which is an art history encyclopedia that specifically looks at all kinds of animals featured in medieval illuminated manuscripts, also with lots and lots and lots of pictures. This kind of art reference has way more than most people can get online, at least not without some specialized access through library or museum resources. And very likely these kinds of publications look at primary sources, where online it's way harder to vet if an image or its accompanying metadata even matches your search terms correctly. Of course, this kind of art history info can deepen your connection to art and can inform your process in a unique way. Transformative in a way, really. Especially if you're like drawing all these weird fantasy creatures all the time and you want like a different approach to other people, so you end up looking through your medieval bestiary for some super outrageous looking thing to inspire you for this weird fantasy creature, and you find out that pre-science crocodiles were pretty crazy misunderstood, though medieval folk were really, really good at drawing birds and hoofed animals. And then of course you've got your entertainment focused books that has really great characters and stories that are just bursting with information to make you want to draw all kinds of blorbos. These are so much fun. And now we get to the part of the list where I list off some of my more aspirational pie in the sky kind of wishes, like a decent and robust functionality on the iPad or Photoshop. Color tools on iPad Photoshop really suck. It's like this app was hastily hammered together just to get a little bit of market share back from Procreate. But it's hard to tell if this thing was supposed to be a true photo editing app, which it doesn't do that well, or a drawing app, which it also doesn't do that well. Its saving grace is that you can use certain features from the desktop version of Photoshop and then continue editing on the iPad, but it throws up a fuss about things and often refuses to do certain things because of RAM limitations. If I keep running into these certain pains in the butt, I will eventually suck it up and get into Procreate. I would also like to have a bottomless cocoa mug, because I just gotta have that cozy drink to sip when I'm doing art. I love cocoa. I want to be more into tea than I am, because I do really like some of the teas and they're usually much lighter on the stomach, but for some reason making cups of cocoa just comes so naturally. I never want to Keurig or anything like that. My homemade recipe is way too good for the automatic stuff, but it can be a bit of a hassle when you're sipping on this cocoa when it eventually runs out and you need to get more, or you need to fill it with not cocoa because you've had maybe too much cocoa. But I would prefer the bottomless cocoa mug, and then also it have 0 side effects, and I just want to drink the taste in forever. And here is my little practice sketch with the decorative brushes. I am saving those dragon brushes for something that'll be coming out a little bit later in a few days, so look out for that. Thanks for sticking around. Hit that like button, and also hit subscribe so you don't miss the next video coming out in 2 days. Have a super duper Christmas!